So we will start with a Shanti mantra. As all of you know, a Shanti mantra is a mantra which is chanted before we start something or also after the end of some activity, mostly like a class where we discuss a particular scripture. The Shanti mantra, it is called Shanti mantra because we pray to the highest principle or God or Brahman or whatever you want to call that, Parama Tattva or highest principle. We pray for getting free from suffering, three kinds of suffering. The first suffering is Adhyatmika Dukkha. Dukkha is suffering. So Adhyatmika Dukkha means suffering which is created at the level of the body and the mind and the prana, etc. At the level of a person, an individual, that's suffering. And then there is Adi Bhautika, that is suffering which is grounded in different beings, Adi Bhautika. So different beings, so suffering caused by maybe a dog bite, etc. That kind of suffering. And the third kind of suffering is suffering which is caused by godly elements or divine forces, like suffering caused by all these hurricanes, typhoons and volcano eruptions and floods and all that. So three kinds of sufferings. That's how our rishis have classified them neatly into three kinds of sufferings. And so these sufferings we have to get rid of. The idea is to become free from suffering. And for that, there are different Shanti mantras. Usually, when we study an Upanishad or when we study some such portion of a Veda, the Shanti mantra will be from that particular Veda. Suppose you are studying an Upanishad from the Yajurveda. As you all might know, there are two kinds of Yajurveda, Shukla Yajurveda, Krishna Yajurveda. There is an interesting story behind that. See, we Indians, we all like telling. First of all, we like talking. So the whole concept of unlimited talk time you will not get anywhere else in the world. I'm sure I have checked it. Okay. So, and the second thing is that we like stories. So we have plenty of stories all around our Shastras. And so there is a story, interesting story. We will not go into this today. Also for maintaining some suspense and also because we have less time. But sometime during this discussion on the Brahma Sutra, of Yajurveda, Shukla Yajurveda or the white Yajurveda and the Krishna Yajurveda, the black Yajurveda. So suppose you are chanting, you are studying Upanishad from the Shukla Yajurveda, you will recite a Shanti mantra. Sometimes it is translated into English as a peace chant. The same ethos does not come. When you say Shanti mantra, the same feeling does not come by peace chant. It is as though it's going to break into pieces. Like that you get one feeling, personal feeling. So peace chant, Shanti mantra, will be from the particular Veda from which this Upanishad you are going to study. But because we are going to study the Brahma Sutra, so what is Brahma Sutra, etc. will come. We make it simple. Sahana Bhavatu, we all know the Shanti mantra. This Shanti mantra is typically meant for a classroom setup where there is a teacher and there is a taught. There is a student and there is a teacher, or a pupil is there and the guru is there. And just imagine the foresight of our rishis. How beautiful, even today in this pandemic time, 2021, it is so relevant. So we will first chant the mantra. Most of you know this mantra. We will chant and also most of you know the meaning, but again we will revisit. For those few who don't know, we will revisit the meaning. So the mantra is Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavahai, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So the mantra is Sahana Sahanau Avatu. Sahana Avatu. It becomes in Sandhi. Sahanau Avatu means the idea is let us be protected. Protected means who? Saha together. Together means the teacher and the taught. May we be protected. So both Guru and Shishya, they are both are saying let we be protected. Today particularly because of COVID-19, it makes so much sense. So first let us be safe. Then we will see Brahma Sutra. First let us be safe, put on your masks and all that. Of course, in front of screen when you're in home may not be necessary, but particularly when you go outside, definitely put on the mask, use sanitizer and all that. So Sahanau Avatu, may that prime principle or the ultimate principle or God protect both of us. So for anything to happen, first we have to have a proper body and mind, that is ensured. Then Sahanau Bhunaktu, not only just protected, but if you are unable to do anything, if you are, as they say, clinically alive, but you are bedridden, you are on ventilator, you are on some life support, that will not help. So Sahanau Bhunaktu, may we both be nourished. Let us all eat nicely. And that's why you will see most of the monks, they're nice fat, nicely payasa and all they have eaten, and then they are now fat and now ready to understand the Vedas. So first you have to have basic, energy in your body. Once you have got that, then again. And also here also we are starting this 9:30. Hopefully you all have you had your dinner nicely, you have settled, and now you will Brahma Sutra, nothing, I just finished my dinner. Brahma Sutra also I'll finish like that. So Sahanau Bhunaktu, both should be nourished. Nourished all the levels of this body state, embodied state, that is body, mind, prana, intellect and ananda. All the states should be nourished. All the levels should be nourished. Sahano Bhunaktu. Saha Viryam Karavavahai. Let us do our activity. Here the activities of learning with great energy, with great vigor. Let there be vigor in our endeavors, or let there be vigor in our action. That is the Saha Viryam Karavavahai. Tejasvina Adhitamastu. So let us study with great, again, brilliance. Tejasvi. So brilliance. Let us study Adhitam. Let us study whatever we study. Let us study it with brilliance. That means let that remain in our mind. Also, let that be this quest for knowing more and more. That is the idea. So then comes the another prayer, which is very interesting and also makes much sense. That is Ma Vidvishavahi. Let there not be any kind of ill feeling between us. Usually teacher and then one might think, oh, teacher and student, how ill feeling? Yes, it is there. First thing the student thinks is this teacher is not properly qualified. That is the first instance of ill feeling. And second ill feeling is this teacher is talking more. First, we just saw three kinds of suffering. So one suffering is this Adi Bhautika. So maybe this is one person, one Bhuta, one living being. This is in the form of my teacher who is giving me suffering. Like that also one may think. So there are different ways. And in English, we have this proverb, familiarity breeds contempt. So the more you interact with someone, even though that person is in a much higher state than you, we forget that. And what happens? We try to judge that person based upon our standards. And so we feel that we don't feel. In Hindi, there is another proverb, Ghar ki murgi dal barabar. So if you have a hen in your home, it is treated on a par with this dal. It's not much great because you don't understand. So probably that is why when you interact with the guru or the teacher for a long time, there tends to be some kind of a lack of respect or something, and it works both ways. The guru also tends to take lightly the student, so may not take the student more seriously, etc. And so for that purpose, here this very great prayer, Ma Vidvishavahi, let there not be any kind of jealousy, enmity, ill feeling, basically ill feeling, any kind of ill feeling between the teacher and the taught. So this is a wonderful mantra. And why am I saying this mantra? Unfortunately, because many people do not take a small effort needed to understand Samskrita, most of the Samskrita mantra is chanted, not understood. They're just chanted. If you go to any temple and all that, we will understand. Temple, they will do the archana for 5,000 rupees also they will do. And they will do for 5 rupees also. So 5,000 rupees will be, they will show you all the parts of the image. They will do all the alankara. They will give tulasi, they will give flower, they will give tika, everything they will do. And 5 rupees is, okay, what is the nakshatra? Okay, over. Then the ring bell and finish. So like that, depending on what is the input, output also will be there. So most people don't understand. They only understand that it should be chanted in some raga. What raga also, the basic logic is not understood mostly. So whenever we chant a Samskrita stotra or a chant or a mantra, it is better that while we are chanting, we know the meaning, because it's a prayer after all. And when we are praying, we should definitely know the meaning. So the Shanti mantra, we know the meaning and we chant. Now we come to our topic, which is called Brahma Sutra. What is Brahma Sutra? For going, as I told you, some of you also, we got some emails. So some of you have expressly told that we are not so well versed in these scriptures and all that. So for the sake of them, we'll just see what are the Brahma Sutra. So what is the background? You see, as we all know, the Vedas are roughly divided into 3 parts, depending upon the content. The first part, usually the part in the beginning, is called the Samhita portion. Samhita portion is where there are different hymns or prayers. As we all know, there are 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva. Depending upon the chronology, it is so Rig Veda is the oldest, the Yajur Veda is the second oldest, Sama Veda then, and then latest is Atharva Veda. Now here the Rig Veda, for instance, starts with Samhita portion. So Samhita means where there are hymns or mantras or prayers, etc. Afterwards, there is what is called as Brahmana. Brahmana means there are elaborate details about different sacrifices. Sacrifices means yajnas, rituals, Vedic rituals, yajnas which are talked of in the Vedas. And then towards the end comes what is called Aranyaka. Aranyaka, as the name itself suggests, it is something connected to Aranya or forest. And so Aranyaka means that which has been understood after meditating on the deep truths of life or after in the forest. So Aranyaka. So these are the 3 portions. And generally in the Aranyaka, there are some texts which are called Upanishad. So what is Upanishad? It is beautifully explained in the commentary of Shankaracharya, Bhagavad-pada Shankaracharya, in Katha Upanishad. So commentary of Shankaracharya in the Katha Upanishad, his introduction to his commentary on the Katha Upanishad, there he explains beautifully what is the meaning of the word Upanishad. Elsewhere also he gives a small explanation, but it is in the Katha Upanishad, in his introduction to his commentary, that he elaborately explains that. What is Upanishad? So Sad means, actually it means loosening up. Loosening up. And there are two prefixes added to that. One is upa, one is ni. So upa means what? Upa means is going near or proximity, near. So by going near to a person who has already found the knowledge of Brahman or God. Many people keep on asking this question, what is God? What is knowledge? Some people say some light they will find. Some people say some kundalini will awake. Some people say somebody will come in front of them. Some people say suddenly they will have no thoughtless state, thoughtless, mindless, hopeless. This is the state one should go. There should be no asha, hopeless, thoughtless. There should be no thought at all. You go beyond thought, and mindless. Your mind should get dissolved. All these things we use generally to denote somebody who is not serious, a thoughtless person, mindless person, hopeless, like that we say. But in a spiritual context, that is exactly what we have to become, because as we all know, Upanishad says, Ashahi paramam dukkham nairashyam paramam sukham. So we have to become nirashi. In the Gita, this word is used, nirashi, means we should not have hope. If you don't have hope, you will not have suffering. So you have to become hopeless, and we should transcend the mind. So we have to become mindless, and we have to become thoughtless. So some people say this you have to become. So people are all confused. What is this God realization? What is this? Where, in which Amazon, Flipkart, where we will get this kilo? What is the rate, etc. Which brand we should buy? So basically, God realization means a doubtless understanding of oneself. That is what God realization is. A doubtless understanding of oneself. So any person who has attained that understanding of oneself, a doubtless understanding means then that understanding will never change. It will remain forever because it is a doubtless understanding. So a person who has attained that understanding, we go near that person. That's why upa. And nishchita, ni means nishchita, certain, certitude. In English there is a word which very few people actually understand. English, there are many words which are very confusing. So this is certain, means definitely. Nishchaya, nishchaya, drida, there is another word, drida. So nishchaya means definitely. So you go to a person who has a doubtless understanding of oneself to get a definite knowledge of yourself. And that knowledge leads to sad. Sad means it leads to loosening up of the bonds. So as we all know, the bondage of samsara, that is the bondage of repeated birth and repeated death. Whatever is born is definitely going to die. Bhagavan Shri Krishna says in the Gita, Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityuhu. Whatever has been born is definitely going to die. So, but we all make big fuss of death, because we don't understand that it is inevitable. Anyway, that is the only thing. Our expiry date is the only certain thing in our life. That is the only certain thing. Expiry date is the only certain thing. We have a shelf life. Okay, we don't have a self life. We have a shelf life. It's you have to add. Self does not, capital self does not have any life. It is beyond life. So the fact that we are in samsara, that is we are in bondage because of ignorance. So this samsara we can transcend. We can transcend this embodied condition. How this samsara is always presented as chit jada granthi. Chit jada granthi. Chit means consciousness, chaitanya. Jada means opposite of consciousness. Unconscious, if I say, that will lead you to some psychology. One person will say, hey, Sigmund Freud has so told unconscious, are you going there? So I'm not using that word unconscious, not conscious. That which is in Sanskrita called anatma. So atma, anatma, atma, anatma. So chit jada granthi. Granthi means the naughty problem. Naughty problem, K-N-O-T-T-Y, not N-A-U-G-H-T-Y. Some people might be thinking like that. Your children may be naughty, sometimes your pets also may be naughty, but I'm talking about this naughty problem, K-N-O-T-T-Y. This is a naughty problem, Chit Jada Granthi, and Sri Ramakrishna beautifully talks about this problem in various ways. He says sand and sugar are mixed. Chinite balite meshano. In Bengali he says sand and sugar is mixed. Probably he was talking about the sugar merchants who used to mix the sand. I don't know where from he got this illustration. Anyway, and so if you put an ant there, it will automatically sift or remove the sand from the sugar. It will take only the sugar. That is the Jnani. Jnani or a person of knowledge wisdom will remove the sugar from sand, will differentiate sugar from sand. So that, or there is another, there are so many examples which Sri Ramakrishna gives to show that there is this complete confusion of conscious and unconscious. And as we will see in his introduction to his commentary on the Brahma Sutras, Shankaracharya beautifully, that introduction itself is called Adhyasa Bhashya. So that is a commentary on superimposition. He beautifully talks about how this superimposition, that is mistaking the conscious for inert and mistaking the inert to be conscious, how that happens. We will see that. So when this happens, that is why we consider ourselves to be of having a body. We have two problems when this mistaking of when this not takes place, that is of consciousness and not consciousness, then we have two problems. One is ahankara. We get the sense of ego. And then other problem is mamakara. We get the sense of something belonging to us. So first we get the sense of I, and then we get sense of mine. So I and mine. That is why I is very important in our life. All our lives, if you see, I is very important. Whole life is based on that I, which itself is wrong, which itself is false. It is not real. And then based on that I is mine. First of all, I am there and I possess something. So Sad is loosening up of this bond, loosening of this knot. And that knot, when it is loosened, then what happens? Vidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva samshayaha. When this knot is removed, then all the samshayaha, all the doubts are dispelled. So a person again attains, that disciple also attains a doubtless understanding about oneself. So this is Upanishad. This is the meaning of the word Upanishad. So Upanishad word does not just signify a text. So Katha Upanishad does not just mean that, oh, this is the text. It may also mean the text, but it more than that, it means the process from which you who are now not having an understanding, doubtless understanding about yourself, you move from there, you go to a master who has a doubtless understanding about oneself, and you also attain that state. So Upanishads. So these Upanishads, most of the Upanishads are found in the Aranyaka portion, which is also called the Jnana Kanda. Basically, the Vedas are again classified into two parts in a different manner based on what they are saying. One is Karma Kanda, that is the portion which talks about all the rituals. Then the portion which talks about knowledge, Jnana Kanda. So Jnana Kanda, mostly Jnana Kanda contains this Upanishad. But there are some Upanishads which are there in Samhita also. There are some Upanishads which are there in Brahmana portion also. That is in Karma Kanda also some Upanishads are there. Now this is how the schematic, or this is how the pattern, or the way, the layout of the Vedas. You might have heard one expression which is Veda Trayi. There are some people who will tell you, see, this Atharva Veda, it was never a Veda. Many people just collected things collected from here and there, and it's only a compilation. Actually, Vedas only 3. Why? Because so and so said that Veda Trayi. So the clarification is that is not the meaning. Veda Trayi means Veda has got 3 kinds of texts. 3 kinds of texts. Rig Veda has got a text which is called Rik. That means mantra. That means it is poetry, but more like a shloka. Or we don't say shloka. We don't use the word shloka for the sake of Shruti. Whenever some people they will say that shloka from the Upanishad. No, always from the Veda. It is always mantra. It is not shloka. Shloka is something which is written by somebody, which is thought of, imagined and written. So it is always pertaining to Smriti. Shruti, on the other hand, was not written by anybody. Swamiji says, Swami Vivekananda says, by Vedas no books are meant. So they were like Newton's discovery of gravitational force. They were already there and some rishi discovered it. And so Sayanacharya in his Bhashya or commentary to the Rig Veda, he says, Rishaya hai mantra drashtara hai. So who are rishis? They are people who have seen mantras. So actually they have seen mantras. Swamiji also says seers of mantra. Rishis are seers of mantras. So these mantras we have to call them mantras. They are not to be called shlokas. In the Rig Veda, the mantras are called Rik. Basically, they signify that they are poetry. They are Chandas. They are Padya. In Sanskrit, we call it Padya. They are in a meter. They are poetry. And in the Yajur Veda, it is called Yajus. Yajus is nothing but it's prose. It is paragraph. It is Gadya. It is Gadya. It is paragraph. Prose. And then in Sama Veda, it is Sama. Sama means song. Sama Gana. So the state where I am now staying, Kerala, is supposed to be one of the still one of the states where Samagana tradition is very much vibrant. The other states are Telangana or Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. So here Samagana traditions are vibrant. So here in Kerala, many places if you go, the chanting will also be like Samagana. I don't know how they do that, but I don't myself know Samagana, but that will be like they will elongate they will stretch every letter and every vowel, every swara they will be stretching. So Sahana, like that something they will do. They will not do like just now we chanted. So Sama. And in the Atharva Veda, all these kinds of texts are there. In Atharva Veda, there is prose, there is poetry, and there is song also. So when somebody is saying Vedatrayi, they actually mean that Veda has got three kinds of texts. Vedas have got three kinds of texts. It's not that there are only three Vedas. Now, how many Upanishads do we have? So this is a question. If we just see references to Upanishads made by different acharyas, different teachers in their texts, we'll be surprised that at one point there were thousands of Upanishads. There is one of the earliest commentator on the Upanishads. His name is Upanishad Brahma Yogi. Upanishad Brahma Yogi. He's one of the earliest commentators on the Upanishads. He says that there were thousands of Upanishads. And this person himself comments on some hundreds of Upanishads, several hundreds of Upanishads, of which we get some hundreds. So today we have the text of several hundred Upanishads, say 200 or some odd Upanishads text we are getting. But then we don't generally read all the Upanishads. We don't focus on all the Upanishads. Generally we find people focus on 10 Upanishads. Now 10 Upanishads, why do we focus? So the reason is simple. Our hero as far as Advaita Vedanta is concerned, and also as far as the general schema of Indian philosophy is concerned, Acharya Shankara or Shankaracharya or Bhagavad-pada Shankaracharya can be very well said to be a hero. So this hero, his life was written several hundred years after his passing away. So he lived from 788 to 820. That is the accepted lifetime of Shankaracharya. So 32 years he lived. 16 was supposed to live, then 16 something else happened, all that you might have seen and known, etc. There is this famous movie by G.V. Iyer on Shankaracharya, Samskrita. So there are a lot of, but his biography was written by Madhva Vidyaranya several hundred years after his passing away. So there might be something which has crept into his biography which might not be true, but we have no way to know that. That is the earliest biography we get. So Shankaracharya, it seems, by the age of 5 had completed all his studies. Actually, we begin when age of 5. Nowadays, of course, they begin at 3.5. And admission you have to already, before you marry, you have to first apply for the child's seat in kindergarten, something like that. Then you might get after you get a child. So this now 5, he has studied everything and he started writing at 6 and 7. He has finished all his writing something. So it so happens that Acharya Shankara or Shankaracharya Deva, he first wrote his commentary on the Brahma Sutras. And so Brahma Sutras, when he wrote the commentary, he saw that the Brahma Sutras refer to many Upanishads, but predominantly they refer to 10 Upanishads. And so Shankaracharya wrote the commentary on these 10 Upanishads. And so that is why the 10 Upanishads, they become prominent, because they are referred frequently to in the Brahma Sutras, and Shankaracharya wrote commentaries on them. And then finally he wrote his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. So Shankaracharya, one of his great contributions is to bring out the Bhagavad Gita from the Mahabharata. Till Shankaracharya wrote this commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, very few people actually knew or cared about this wonderful text, which was along with other 17 Gitas in the Mahabharata. Mahabharata totally has got 18 Gitas, all called Gita, some Vyada Gita, Anu Gita, like that. And so this Gita, Bhagavad Gita, was hidden. Now, this theme or this schema or this pattern of seeing 3 aspects of the Shastras or scriptures of Sanatana Dharma was started by Shankaracharya. It is called Prasthana Trayi. Prasthana means different paths. Prasthana means path, or Prasthana means section, etc. So here different paths. So what are Upanishads? Upanishads are Shruti Prasthana, because they form part of the Vedas, which are called Shruti because they are transmitted by word of mouth. They used to be transmitted by word of mouth. Now they are transmitted by WhatsApp. Anyway, so Shruti Prasthana. So Shruti Prasthana means that which is transmitted by Shravana. So this is Shruti Prasthana, that is Upanishads. Then Smriti Prasthana. That means Mahabharata is Smriti because it was written out of Smarana or out of memory. And so Smriti Prasthana, that which belongs to Smriti, that is Bhagavad Gita. And then the third is Nyaya Prasthana. Nyaya means logic. Nyaya Prasthana, that is Brahma Sutra. Nyaya means logic. Now, what is the point in studying Brahma Sutra? Swamiji, what we have always see, first one thing I want to clarify here. Somehow people have this idea that Brahma Sutra means very tough. And that is completely baseless. I want to tell you this. It has got no foundation in truth. There is no truth to this statement. Then why everybody is telling it is long. It has got 555 sutras. Generally accepted number, that is the number which Shankaracharya accepts. 555 sutras are there. Some, according to some other commentators, it may be little more and less. But because we are going to follow Shankaracharya, Bhagavad Shankaracharya, he says it is 555 sutras. Categorized in 4 chapters. So because it is long, along with Shankaracharya's commentary, very long. So people will say, oh, very, very tough. No, it is not tough. Long, if you see, Harry Potter also is long. Nobody is not reading, they have not kept reading. And so many other series also people are binge watching, particularly in COVID time. So if you talk about length, there is so much to be talked of. So that is not the case. Length it is there, but it is no way it is difficult. Also, one important reason why it is not difficult, because the commentary is written by Shankaracharya himself, who is very simple. He has got profound thought, but he has written it in a very simple language which anybody can understand. So Brahma Sutra is called, why do we need to study? It's called Nyaya Prasthana. Nyaya means logic. So the path of logic. Why do we need to study this? The reason is that we should not have any doubt about what is told in the scriptures. So Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. There also some general confusion is that people generally say Shravana means listen, Manana means think, and Nididhyasana means meditate, finish. It is not like that. Shravana means once you have gone through the process of Shravana, you should get completely convinced of what the scriptures say. So it is not that you will just listen and then now I will think, Manana. No. Shravana means you completely, by the process of Shravana itself, after the stage of Shravana itself, you get completely convinced of what is told. So in the process of Shravana itself is properly analyzing what you have heard. So Manana is something else. It is different than that. Manana is when you constantly think, concentrate on that. And Nididhyasana is when you become absorbed in that. So most of the times we are just in the Shravana level. So Shravana means you first understand what has been told, you ask questions, you analyze what has been told, and then till you get convinced completely, doubtlessly you get convinced about what has been told in the scriptures. That is what is Shravana. And as part of Shravana, it is very important that there are counter questions. Counter questions. Generally, our education system works like this. We take kids to the school and then we say finger on lips. Of course, now they might not say, there are different models of education. But anyway, you prevent children from asking questions because it's great bother. Then after they grow up with this training, afterwards you take them to school and say, children, you should ask questions. Okay, so you first hinder them. You first say don't ask questions. Then you afterwards say ask questions. So confuse them basically, and you call it education. But in Sanatana Dharma tradition, that is not how it is. From the beginning, in the Gita also it is told, Pariprashnena Sevaya. Those who know the truth, go to them and ask them questions. That's the thing. You ask them questions. You ask them. You properly verify them and also verify what you have understood, whether it is what exactly they want you to understand. So whether their intent and what you have understood is correct. So in Sanatana Dharma, we have a very systematic way of teaching and also ensuring that the other person has understood. Because Brahma Sutra, we all know, in the Indian philosophical scene, we have two kinds of philosophies. One is called Astikya Darshana. Astikya means does not mean that you believe in God or something. It means that you believe in the Vedas. So there are 6 philosophies which are called Astikya philosophies. That is, first one is, the oldest one is Sankhya. Sankhya, which was propounded by Kapila. Then you have Yoga, propounded by Maharshi Patanjali. Then you have Nyaya, propounded by Gautama. Then you have Vaisheshika, propounded by Kanada. Then you have Mimamsa, propounded by Mimamsa or Purva Mimamsa, propounded by Jaimini. Then we have Vedanta or Uttara Mimamsa, propounded by Badarayana. Now, these 6 systems also seen as 3 pairs of philosophies, that is Sankhya Yoga because of similarities, Nyaya Vaisheshika, Uttara Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. These philosophies all accept Vedanta, Vedas as the gospel truth. They don't question the Vedas. So they are called Astikya Darshana. There are 3 other philosophies, broadly speaking, that is. Because in Buddhism there are various kinds of philosophies. So 3 other main philosophical schools, which are Buddhism, they don't believe in the Vedas. They don't accept the Vedas as authority. Then Jainism, they also don't accept the Vedas as authority. Then there is Charuvaka. So one thing I want to make it very clear, most people, even those who call themselves devotees, are living in that stage of Charuvaka. Charuvaka means what? Charu means beautiful. Vak means speech. And we all know they say, Yavat jivet sukham jivet. As long as you live, live happily. Rinam kritva ghritam pibet. Incur debt and drink ghee. Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutah. The body which is going to become ashes, where is it going to return? That is the idea. So we today, instead of ghee, we might be drinking something else. Instead of incurring debt, we all have MasterCard, Visa card and all that. And for every other thing, there is EMI. So we are all perfectly, most of us, if we truly analyze, we are living that life. But anyway, so these are the 6 plus 3 philosophies. 3 Nastikya Darshana, those who do not accept Vedas as authority, and 6 which accept Vedas as authority. Now, because Brahma Sutra, they are the text, means Brahma Sutra is the main text for Vedanta, that is Uttara Mimamsa. Brahma Sutra has been commented on by Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya and so many other people. So it is very important for Vedanta, because Vedanta philosophies, it is the source text or the main text on which Vedanta philosophy is built upon. So Brahma Sutra, what does it do? It tells things and ensures that you have understood them properly. And for that, it poses questions, imagining as though somebody else has asked that question. For example, there might be a question saying, oh, Sankhya people say like that. So Sankhya people say like that. And what is the response to that? There will be a question from Nyaya people. Oh, they say like that. What is your response? So it is called in Samskrita Sthuna Khanana Nyaya. So Sthuna means a pillar. When we put a pillar, or when we even suppose we are fixing a pole or something for making a shamiana or something, then what we do, generally we put the pole and then we shake it little left, right, like that we do. And then we again ensure that it is all very firmly erected. Okay, so that is called Sthuna, means pillar, and you are shaking it. Sthuna Skalana Nyaya. So you are shaking it, moving it like that to ensure that it is firmly in place. That is what is happening here. Whatever you have understood from the Upanishads or from the Gita is to be firmly established in your brain, in your mind. There should be no doubt. So it is counter question, counter question, like investigation. An investigation is done, the advocate will add something which is not there. Oh, like that. Then we all have seen our own share of all these movies where this court scenario will be shown, no, which is totally unlike real court. But anyway, we love that. Then the advocate will ask, so Your Honor, this and this thing. And then like that they will ask, and there will be objection, sustained, overruled, whatever. And then afterwards this person will like that. And then the person who is being questioned will suddenly get charged up, will become angry and blurt out the truth. So the idea is to surround that person from all sides and make that person come out with the truth or tell something, confess something. That is how investigation happens. Here also the same philosophy is followed. So Vedanta says this. What do you say? So Shankaracharya's Vedanta school is Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic Vedanta. But there are Dvaitas also. Dvaita Vedanta is also there. There's Vishishta Advaita Vedanta also there. So even in Advaita school also there is some other type of some differences are there. Like there is Bhartru Prapancha and all that. So Shankaracharya counters those people. Now all these different kinds of opposing thoughts are all brought together, and you will be said, no, this is not the real thing. That is not the real thing. Then what is the real thing? This is the real thing. And it will be told over and again, quoting Upanishads, quoting different parts of the Vedas, and also taking help of the texts from other philosophies. They will be also be quoted. And finally, it will be proved that Advaita Vedanta is the final thing. That is what is going to happen in Brahma Sutras as commented upon by Shankaracharya. So that is why it is called Nyaya Prasthana, because logically the whole position of the Advaita Vedanta is defended, giving different arguments, both for Advaita Vedanta and also showing how the arguments of the opposing philosophies are very weak. And where are they weak? Where is the fallacy, or where is the weakness or flaw in their arguments? So that is how it is done, and that is what is being done in Brahma Sutra. And now we will see the meaning of the word Brahman. What is Brahman? Brahma. We all have heard Brahma Jnana, Brahma Sutra. Actually, in many Indian languages, they say, hey, don't worry, it is not like some Brahma Sutra. Or if somebody is reading, oh, what do you think it is very big Brahma Sutra or what? And so these all popular notions have created more fear regarding Brahma Sutra. It is not like that. It is very simple. If you love the world, you will not like Brahma Sutras. If you love God, you will like Brahma Sutra. Simple. Very simple. So why people don't like? Because it is saying, oh, this world is full of suffering. So Baba, I know that this world has got some ring, and maybe because of one ring I put somewhere I got suffering. But I don't know that this suffering they are talking about. Did you get the joke? Most of you did not get probably. But anyway, usually a ring is connected to suffering, that I know. That is why Holy Mother says, don't put the ring so you will not have suffering. But anyway, many people don't listen to her advice. Now, Brahma Sutra, Brahma, the word is very simple. Brahma means, it means huge. Vishala, huge. And here Brahma, the word Brahma comes from Brahma. That dhatu means huge. But the word Brahma itself denotes ultimate principle, the final principle, ultimate reality. So why the ultimate reality should be given the word Brahma, or it should be derived from the word Brahma, which means huge. The idea is to give us an idea of the infinitude of Brahman. That is, it is infinite. It is infinite. And so this idea of infinity is given by using the word Vishala, or great, big. That means it is the ultimate. There is nothing beyond Brahman. Whatever remains after all that which can be destroyed is Brahman. So we have to understand this. Brahman is what? That which remains. That which remains. That is always there. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit Ananda. So Brahma Sutra means these sutras will prove that Brahman is the ultimate reality. So that which remains, that which remains, that which remains. So Swamiji writes in one letter to one of the Hale sisters with whom he was staying in United States of America. He says, so there is some conversation happens. She is writing a letter to him, and afterwards he writes, it is not that this is Brahman or that is Brahman. Brahman alone is. So it is not, generally we say this is God, that is God. So generally when we say this is God, that which we are referring to as this, suppose we say this mobile is God, like that. Mobile is God. When we say this, what we call this is a perishable entity. Mobile will perish. So that cannot be God, because God cannot perish. So it is illogical. So what we have to understand is only God exists. All other things don't exist, or Brahman only exists. So that is why Swamiji writes in that letter, Brahman alone is real. Brahman alone is, nothing else is. So that's why is means it is always there. It always is. In the past, present and future. So it was, it is, it will be. It was, it is, it will be. And so that is why it is called Sat. Sat means existence, always existing, existence absolute. Chit, it is only conscious, only Brahman is conscious, all other things are unconscious. Wherever there will be something else, there will be unconscious. There will be no knowledge. So Chit, then bliss. Bliss can be there only when only Brahman is there, because it does not depend on anything else. Whatever depends on something else cannot be bliss. So Satchit Ananda Swarupa Brahman. And we can also see the logic of how Advaita is very logical, that we will see later on. Sutra, we all know this meaning of the word sutra also, because we are nearing completion, 9:30 to 10:30. So I will just take you through the meaning of the word sutra. There is a shloka for this sutra, and that shloka is, most of you might know that, Alpaksharam, Alpaksharam, Asandigdam, Saravat Vishwato Mukham, Astobham Anavadyam cha Sutra Sutra Vido Janaha. So what it means basically is that people who know about Sutra, Sutra Vid, those who know what is a Sutra, they say, what do they say? Sutra is this. What is Sutra? Sutra means Alpaksharam. What is Sutra? It's like a formula. Like Brahma Sutra, they start Athato Brahma Jigyasa. This is the first sutra. Yoga Sutras is Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Or Purva Mimamsa Sutra starts Athato Dharma Jigyasa. So Brahma Jigyasa, that is what it starts. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That's the sutra. It's Alpaksharam. It has got very few aksharas, letters. Very few letters. Alpaksharam, as less as possible. But when you say as less as possible, when people talk less, then they create confusion. If somebody comes and tells you, you don't know what is the meaning of that. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be like that. You see the raga also like that. So you can go on and on. People who know dance and all, they know this. You can go that one we can go on forever. So they have different meaning for like that. And because it is not clear, you are unclear. What does this people, and somebody they will say, okay, you do. That means don't do. Some people say don't do. That means do. Like that. It is so confusing. So why? Because less aksharas. But here it is not like that. Alpa aksharam. Asandigdam. Though it is of less aksharas, less letters, but there will be no doubt. No doubt about what has been told here. Alpaksharam, Asandigdham, Saravat, and it is full of meaning. Not only there is no doubt, but full of meaning. And Vishwato Mukham, it has got a purpose. That means it has got some applicability. Generally, we talk about so many things, particularly when we want to just gossip and spend time, which has no purpose in our life. Like what is happening today in Africa or some other place, name itself we don't know. And then we will talk, in that summit, a G8 summit, they discussed this. How is it connected to our life? No, we are not bothered. We just want to spend time. That's all. So like that, here it is not like that. It is applicable to us. It is applicable directly to our lives. So that is why Sutra. So Alpaksharam. About Alpaksharam, you might have heard that the people who used to write sutras, they used to feel so happy if they could reduce one syllable, one matra in a sutra. The happiness was more than the birth of a child. The happiness when a child is born. So they will, one matra I have reduced, like that. So Alpaksharam, Asandigdam, Saravat, Vishwato Mukham, Astobham. So there is no Ubham, means there is no meaningless thing in that. like something which is just added for the sake of making the meter. And like the word tu, if you see in Bhagavad Gita itself, there will be many places there will be this word tu or he. So tu means what? Indeed, but that is not needed there. Even if you don't say indeed, the meaning is clear. Why is it put? To make that chandas complete, anushtup chandas or trishtup chandas, to make it complete, you supply that word, because that particular syllable is necessary there. Or he again means indeed. He, the smaller e, not he but he. So tu, he, like that. All these are why, va, I. All these mean the same thing indeed, but they are not necessary in a particular shloka. Even without these letters, we understand the meaning of the shloka. So they are just put there without any purpose, just to fill the gap. It's like filler, just to fill the gap. That is called ubham. And so astobham means that is not there in this. In a sutra, such needless words will not be added. Needless letters will not be added. Astobham. Anavadyam cha. And it is anavadyam, means it cannot be refuted. Suddenly, if you say now, like about corona, every day some theory is coming up, and even as fast as the theory is coming, the refutation is also coming. Hey, no, that is wrong. No, that particular research is wrong. So like that, here it cannot happen. Anavadyam. Sutra, whatever has been told, you cannot dispute it. Means it is told with proper proof. Whatever is told is completely valid. Nothing can be refuted. It is strong. With certainty it is told. That is the idea. So that is called sutra. So when we say Brahma Sutra, 555 sutras in 4 chapters, all these sutras, they are having least number of letters, alpaksharam, and they are having no doubt. There is no doubt about what they are saying, and they have got full of meaning, and they have some applicability in our lives, and also they don't have any useless letters. That is why they are alpaksharam, and they cannot be refuted. So this is the meaning of Brahma Sutra. So next, that is this Wednesday onwards, we will start studying the text itself. As I told you just some time ago, because some people might not have some knowledge of basic things. That is why we devoted today for these things. And also Shankaracharya, he has written a beautiful introduction to his commentary on the Brahma Sutras. And you know what? It is believed, and it has been proved also again and again, that if you properly understand the meaning of the the introduction to the commentary, the introduction is called Adhyasa Bhashya. Bhashya means commentary. Adhyasa Bhashya. So it's the introduction itself is a commentary on superimposition, Adhyasa, or which is also called Avidya, Maya, etc. Now the traditional belief, which is again proven to be true many times, is that if you have properly understood the meaning of Adhyasa Bhashya, you will attain Brahmajnana. If you have properly understood the meaning of Adhyasa Bhashya, then you will attain Brahmajnana. So that is so important. And so that Adhyasa Bhashya we will start studying from this Wednesday onwards. And also, as you have been told in the WhatsApp message which was posted in the groups, please feel free to ask any questions you have. It might be directly connected to Brahma Sutra, might not be connected to Brahma Sutra, but please don't ask questions like which mutual fund we have to invest, Swamiji, like that. I might be able to give you advice, but maybe if you lose, then it will be problematic for me, no? So that is why. But generally about scriptures and spiritual life, please feel free to ask any questions you have, and that I will explain it by posting the question and also the answer in the WhatsApp group, so that you can ask me questions through email. You have the email ID, and I will post the answers in the WhatsApp group so that everyone is benefited. And I'm very happy that even during Corona time, this people are ready to learn Brahma Sutra. And as I was telling to some person, a devotee, that I thought that people have got mistaken. They thought Brahma Sutra something there, some else, some cookery show or something. I think that is why there is this overwhelming response. But I was told, no, Swamiji, people really want to learn Brahma Sutra. And as you would have already understood, we will see Brahma Sutra in the light of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sarada Devi and Swami Vivekananda. Actually, Swami Vivekananda, one of the dreams he had was that there should be a new commentary written on the Brahma Sutras, which should integrate the commentaries of Shankaracharya, Ramanuja and Madhvacharya. And he tells his disciple Sharat Chandra Chakravarti that this commentary should be written. He in fact starts some work also, but unfortunately we don't have any written document for that work. And he brings all the commentaries and he studies all the commentaries. So it was one of his desires that there should be a commentary on Brahma Sutras, which is written in the light of the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. So though we might not be writing that commentary, we will only follow Shankaracharya's commentary, but we will see the parallels from Sri Ramakrishna's life, Swamiji's life and teachings, and Sri Sarada Devi's life and teachings. So we will, in the beginning also Shanti, and in the end also Shanti. So whatever in between also will be very peaceful. And afterwards, because it is a apt time, you see, after dinner you attend the class. So if not anything, I can assure you the class will act as a tranquilizer. So after this, you hear all that, you are good, ready to go to bed. So anybody having any sleep problem also, I am confident that that will go away. So we will just tell the Shanti mantra. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. So namaste to all of you. Namaste.